Thank you for staying with the Monday Report. Let's start that discussion right now in Tanzania. Heat over Tundu Lissu. Let me introduce my guest, starting from studio. And my farthest end is Hamed Ashi, governance and policy expert. Thank you for making time. Gloria Kimani is here. She's the LSK Council member. She was actually in Tanzania during that detention and deportation. Thank you for making time.
Yeah.
And we have Joshua Kipto, advocate and governance practitioner. Thank you very much for making time after quite a long time away from studio.
Thank you.
And Donald Dea, CEO, Pan-African Lawyers Union, commonly referred to as PALU, is joining us from Arusha, Tanzania. Thank you very much for making time. And Gloria, I'll start with you. Now that you were there, just give us a blow-to-blow of what really happened in Tanzania. What was your mission there? And what were you told when you got to the airport?
So we had gone for a trial observation, which we have done in the past. We have done with Besigye. So we thought it was quite an easy thing to just go to Tanzania. We have done it before. The last time Tundu was to appear in court, we did go for the trial observation. So we went we got to the airport, went to Dar es Salaam. So we were just at the immigration office, handing over our passports, and we were asked, why are you here? The normal questions they ask. And so when we said personally, when I said I am a guest of East Africa Law Society, they asked me, what do you do for a living? I told them I'm a lawyer and I am here as a guest of East Africa Law Society. So one of them just took my passport and went. So 20 minutes there, I told them, okay, so what's happening? What's happening? They'll just have a seat together. So that's when I saw Honorable Martha and Lynn sitting somewhere, so I went and sat there. So we stayed for a couple of hours before they came, and later now an immigration officer came to us and told us, you have been denied entry in Tanzania, and you're going back to your country.
Did they tell you why you're denied entry?
So we asked them the reasons why, and they said orders from above. So we asked, who's above? And they actually said, we can't say, they're just orders from above, that you're not allowed in the country anymore.
So were you spoken to as a group or individually? Because
no, okay, because we were three of us.
Yeah.
So they just told us, orders from above, we are not allowing you in.
Okay. But why were you there? What was your mission there?
We were on a trial observation.
That's
so
what you
as
wanted.
Jurists, yes.
Okay.
Yes, as advocates. So we were not there to represent Tundu Lissu. We were just going to observe the trial of Tundu Lissu.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Hashi, the Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan is describing this as an export of activism. Do you agree?
I think she's wrong. I think she's wrong on the morals of it. I think she's wrong on the ethics of it. I think she's wrong on the laws of it. I think she's wrong on the justification of it. I think she's so wrong on this matter that I was stunned that an activist like her from Zanzibar, who went through the ranks to get to where she was and who was constitutionally elected, the first woman East African, which made everybody in East Africa quite happy, would be the first to use her experience to edge Tanzania into a more open, into a more transparent society. And I think that a lot of the people who are watching the region are shocked at the behavior of the president of Tanzania, who was a fresh breath of fresh air when she came in. And I think this is not the only thing she's done. She's imprisoned a few people who are political leaders in political parties, and she's trying to put the heavy lead foot of the Chama cha Mapinduzi into the neck of Mr. Democracy himself. And I think this is indicative of Tanzanian society itself. It's just nonsense to say that we don't interfere in the internal affairs of Tanzania. There's no such thing as internal affairs in this region.
Yeah.
East Africa is our home. It's our country.
Okay.
It's probably the most important political adventure, the undiscovered country, what I call the undiscovered country. Because the problem is if we keep thinking, our heads of state and our political class keep thinking about something called a nation state and sovereignty. These are caricatures of the 20th century. For us to survive economically first and foremost, we have to bring together this region. And how do you bring the region together? You have to start it from a point of law.
Okay.
And it is a shame that they did this to Chiza Besigye the other day, and they're doing it to Tinder Lusu. I think that the CCM should open up, let there be an open democratic process.
Yeah.
The guy who helped the Constitution, and I have a lot of respect for Mr. Wabiora, I think that's his name, tall, lanky fellow, who is from the generation of the 1960s. Now, just a little bit of a context, you know that Tanzania is way ahead of us in every way. They might have hiccups. We're not here to bash Tanzania. It's our country. It's our sister country. You know, they don't have tribalism like just yesterday or today on the TV sets. You could hear some of the political leaders speaking just total nonsense.
Yeah.
You know, when you go to Tanzania, Tanzanians ask you if you're from Kenya. So they know that, you know, we're full of worms in a can. And they don't want our problems. The problem of East Africa is not Tanzania, it's Kenya. And this, I always say that patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. And the Kenyans are waving their Kenyan flags and saying, why was mother done this and why was mother done that? It's because they have this sensitivity to us. We are corrupt. We like to push our weight around. We like to boss people around. I mean, any Tanzanian sitting in a sitting room would say, what are these Kenyans coming to do here? But the responsible thing for leaders to say, and for leaders to act in, is to say that we need to harmonize our economies. We need to have one currency. We need to have a legislative system that helps increase East Africa's potential to produce jobs in this region. And any kind of attempts at the hearth and of nationalism, I think is passé.
Okay. Kipto, what do you make of this? Does she have a point when she says it's an export of activism?
Not at all. I just want to pick from where Hashi has mentioned about Tanzania. You need to look at it from a context of Samia Suluhu is basically a carry forward of the late John Magufuli. Her prominence, her space in CCM and even the vice presidency then to the presidency is all tied down to John Pombe Magufuli, the late. And if you look at the character or the nature of their politics, Magufuli was literally a serious strongman. Number two, he was a die-hard nationalist who believed in hard borders at the expense of integration. And if you remember the kind of skirmishes that Kenya and Tanzania had during his reign as a president for the few years he was, it was pretty rough.
True.
In more than 2 occasions, our president Uhuru Kenyatta then had to do high-level bilateral just to try to calm things down. Remember, they even banned chicks at the border. So Samia Suluhu was a loyal vice president. The only disappointment maybe is that when she came in, there was a huge sense of a sigh of relief for 2 reasons. She's a lady or she's a woman, but importantly, the first woman president within the region, if not East and Central Africa. On top of that, it was felt that having come from Zanzibar, which has always been the segment of Greater Tanzania that is always marginalized and even always entertaining thoughts of secession or going back to the status quo before 64, when they came together with Tanganyika, there was a feeling that it will be a different kind of a leadership under Samia Suluhu, and being a woman. And then the optics were wrong for this one, because the detainees or the people who are prohibited from entering Tanzania were led by Martha Karua. And this again, face of women leadership way back from the 90s. Martha Karua has been on record praising her election or her ascent to power, because she hasn't faced an electorate yet, because she came in as a number 2 for Magufuli. So that's why I feel we should see it within that context. Number 2, which is quite clear also, Tanzania has always been backfooting on integration. They always have these 2 sets of rules, where we have our Jumuiya rules, but Tanzania is always the kind of a country that even after East Africa has ratified or we have rules that apply, Tanzania will always be the one backpedaling. They'll be the ones who always follow up, negotiate, and all those kind of things. Despite our different protocols from common market, custom union, free labor movement, as lawyers, now that we are both lawyers here, I don't think it's easy for the Kenyan lawyers to practice in Tanzania. That's still a sticking point. Uganda maybe, Tanzania no. So I wasn't too surprised when that happened. Lastly, I think it's a question of the mood within the region. The politics of strongman or strongmanship, where you have more or less pandering to the whims of dictatorship and more or less strong government control over an open democratic space, is kinda almost the thing blowing across the region.
Okay.
And this comes under the backdrop after what happened to Kizza Besigye. So I suspect the Tanzanian authorities saw it from that perspective. And the lessons learned from what happened in Kenya last year through the Gen Z, I think there's that fear that we hope these people are seeking, they're not seeking to metastasize the cancer that started in Kenya.
Okay.
No one expected the kind of protests that happened in Kenya last year. It was spontaneous, it was big, and had serious ramifications to the point that our governance has been altered to a case of now we are talking about a broad-based governance. So I suspect Uganda, Tanzania are operating from a point of fear, paranoia. And that's why today she came out and expressed that.
She even said it.
I think she was open and she was candid. That look, what they have done in their country. So it was more or less like a profiling.
But you know, we have to understand where that comes from. We really, if we want this East Africa, we really have to understand where this comes from. There's a fear about us. And you know, we don't have to be gung-ho about ourselves. The other countries feel that Kenya is overbearing. Kenya wants to have its way. Kenya wants to get on a flight and come to a court and tell us what to do. These are the comprehensive English word for it is angst. They are feeling a sensitivity about this issue. And I think that we ought to make allowances for it, because if we want to lead, all of us want to lead East Africa into where we want it, we have to make allowances for the sensitivities that are in the region. And if we are not mature enough to make that, then we're not going to have the integration that we want. And these are the hopes for the jobs for these young people in this region. Lastly,
is it that we're too overbearing, or are we too liberal?
No, we're just
so that we can.
No, we're well. This is a historical thing. When Tanzania got independence, they went and built a nation. We went and built markets to go and trade with each other and make money. So the trajectory for the Tanzanian economy and nation is on a higher curve than us, because we're still fighting the nation issue. You see the former DP, how he's speaking, see how the government is speaking. The tribal narrative, I don't like the word narrative, the tribal discourse in the country. When the Tanzanians watch this, they just get shocked and appalled. And another thing is that Tanzania has had much more linkages with the outside world of the Indian Ocean. While even though we were still here in the Indian Ocean, the values and the cultures of that have not seeped into the rest of the country. So it's a very complicated relationship, and I just want us to be very mature about accommodating our neighbors and understanding where they come from. Even though the bedrock issues is that there should be a judicial amalgamation, there should be one economy, we should have the East African Pesa, we should have free movement of people and labor, and in the beginning Kenya will suffer. But the other countries will come up, and we have to make allowances for that, so that our economy can quadruple and we can produce jobs for the young people.
Let me bring in Dea here from Dea. Donald Dea is the CEO of Pan-African Lawyers Union. He's joining us from Arusha. Dea, you know, let's look at it from Tanzania's perspective. So Tundu Lissu seems to be an internal Tanzanian affair. Is it proper for the TZN authorities to keep non-Tanzanians out of this?
Trevor, I can question this word that is sometimes used by African politicians when they're backed in a corner, called internal, and what is an internal affair, and who gets to define what they say is an internal affair. But even if you're to call it that, let's start by one thing. And I want to pick up from what the last speaker said. We've got to separate the Tanzanian people from the Tanzanian government. The Tanzanian people are with us. We are with them, and we talk with them all the time. We spend the whole day with them. So do not blame the Tanzanian people for what the present Tanzanian government is doing. And even on this thing that you call solidarity, which is what our colleagues from Nairobi and from Kampala, because we are forgetting that we had colleagues from Uganda, one of whom is arrested right now, is in detention, alongside Agatha Tuhaire is in detention in Dar es Salaam, alongside Boniface Mwangi. East African citizens have long expressed and demonstrated solidarity with each other. I will not even start with the era of Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. I will start much nearer. In 2008, the day after the contested election results were announced at the Kenyatta International Conference Center in Nairobi, Mama Helena Kijo Bisimba, who was then running the Legal and Human Rights Center in Tanzania, convened a meeting of all the leading Tanzanian human rights NGOs and activists to pronounce themselves on what was about to happen in Kenya. And they sent a statement. The day after, the late Professor Haru Bothman, may his soul rest in peace, and a number of other professors convened a professors' baraza at the University of Dar es Salaam and also expressed themselves in a statement on what was going on in Kenya, what we now call a post-election crisis. These statements that they issued drove the Tanzanian national response, including the Tanzanian governmental response. In 2020, just after the very last violent elections in Tanzania, 2 Ugandan CSOs and 2 Kenyan CSOs filed a case where their lawyers in the East African Court of Justice concerning what had happened in Tanzania. These were the Center for Constitutional Governance, Uganda, Chapter 4, Uganda, Kenya Human Rights Commission, and the Kenyan section of the International Commission of Jurists.
Yeah.
At a time when Tanzanian CSOs were not able to express themselves because of the sheer violence of John Pombe Joseph Magufuli,
yeah,
2 Ugandan and 2 Kenyan CSOs rose up to speak for our people. Mm-hmm. Starting in 2002, when this same government of President Samia Suluhu Hassan began their onslaught against the Maasai community of Loliondo Division and Sale Division in Ngorongoro district here in Arusha, it is the Maasai of Narok County that have been housing their colleagues from across the border, supporting them, keeping them in their homes and homesteads and so on. 2 months ago, when the Kenyan security apparatchiks and the Tanzanian security apparatchiks colluded to try and abduct my friend, Maria Sarungi Sehai, we saw a spontaneous uprising of East Africans from Kenya, from Uganda, from Tanzania, and that is what saved my friend Maria's life.
Yeah.
So East Africans have been expressing solidarity with each other, and that is what this group of Kenyans and Ugandans sought to do.
Okay.
And a trial, if it is a public trial, and if it is based on the rule of law, what are you afraid of? Of people just coming to sit in the court to watch what your court is doing?
Okay.
So we've got to tell Mama Samia,
yeah,
it is we, the people who own the region. You get to run it, but we own it.
All right.
The fact that you get to run it does not mean that you own it. We, the people, own it, and you cannot stop it. We will continue expressing solidarity to each other.
All right.
Mpende.
We're coming to discuss what she's afraid of in just a bit, but I have to take a quick break. I know, Gloria, you've been quiet for a while. I'll come to you, and then when we come back from the break, we release Ashi, because I know you have a commitment that you need to attend to. But stay with Citizen TV at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag ManReport. See you in just a bit.